Hello, my friends. This is the third video in a series of videos on anti-American sentiment forecasting and how this anti-American sentiment forecasting helps us predict what will happen in the Russian invasion of the Ukraine that started on February 24th, 2022. And what I'm going to show you in this video is in addition to the anti-American sentiment forecast, there is a pro-American sentiment forecast. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you how the pro-American sentiment forecast, what it did during the years 1936 to 1946. In the previous video in this series, I showed you the anti-American forecast, and the anti-American forecast showed the huge increase in anti-American feelings in the late 1930s and up to about 1943. And as the Allies began to win the war around 1943 and then finally completely win it in 1945, the anti-American sentiment started to die out around 1943. Here is the pro-American sentiment, and what we see is a sudden boom here in 1942 to 1943. So we see this gradually increasing wider and higher peaks from 1942 through 1945. So pro-American sentiment is fairly even, going up and down, up and down, up and down, I would say until about 1940, till late 1940. So late 1940 is just before the United States enters the war in 1941. So the pro-Western energy starts to pick up shortly after the war begins. This is not good for the Nazis. If the pro-American sentiment remained low, the Nazi power would have had a greater chance of winning. But the anti-Nazi pro-Western sentiment starts to pick up shortly after the war and then booms. It booms in 1942 to 1943. And then again in 1944 and 1945, you'll just see the graph getting higher and wider, starting around 1940, which shows that the West is going to tend to win. When pro-American sentiment is high, America wins. When anti-American sentiment is high, America loses. Life is not fair. It's not whether I like America or I don't like America. This is what happens. So, regardless of what you like, what you want, what you believe, American sentiment increases, and look at that huge peak in 1945 as the war ends. So there it is. From 1942 to 45, the graph is much higher, especially starting in 42. This big peak here happens in late 42, starting in late 42 with the huge peak in 43. So from late 42 to 45, exactly when the West starts to win. And that is exactly when the anti-American sentiment went down, as I showed you in the previous graph. So you have a clear transition from America doing badly, and the rise of anti-American sentiment, and then the turning of the tide. The model works beautifully in this case. And here is a detailed look of 2022. Because we want to see our forecast for the Ukraine war. And February 24th is right over here. If you can see my cursor, just as this graph starts to reach its peak, is when the pro-American, so we saw that the anti-American force is very strong as the war began, but so is the pro-American. So what we have in March and April of 2022 is strong anti-American and strong pro-American. Both can be happening at the same time. This is what helped Ukraine push back the Russian army. Russia went in because anti-American sentiment was high. What they may not have known is that pro-American, pro-Western sentiment was high. The Ukrainians don't want to be part of the Russian way. They like their association with the West, and they're fighting a bitter war and sacrificing as the pro-Western feeling is so high. Exactly what's happening. Now, what's our forecast? I'm making this forecast in mid-April, right around here, as pro-American and pro-Western sentiment decreases and remains fairly low until around November. There's a little peak in late June, early July. Well, pretty good peak, late June, early July. Now, if you remember in the previous forecast, September and October is when anti-Western sentiment is very high. Pro-American sentiment is very low. It's the perfect storm. It's the worst possible scenario. If the war continues into September and October, our forecast, based on this model, is clearly that Russia begins to gain strength in September and October. We'll see if the model works or not. This is just a data-driven process. We don't have to get emotional. We don't have to get personal about it. We're looking at the data and what the data is telling us. If the war lasts through the end of this year, I don't know if it will or not, but if it does, September and October are going to be very, very difficult, and it can look rather bleak and pessimistic in September and October. But by the end of the year, heading into December, things get much better, and the support, people start rallying for the West and getting more confident in it. That's our forecast. So if it lasts till September, October, it's going to be difficult. It's going to look pessimistic. But if the war doesn't end and Ukraine survives, it then picks up and rallies into the end of the year. I didn't look beyond that, and that's our forecast for the end of this year. Okay, and I started to mention this earlier. There are other forecasts. We have an anti-American sentiment, a pro-American sentiment forecast. We have another forecast for restlessness, change, impatience, and freedom, which was very high in the late 60s. I can make another video about that. In fact, I've made some videos that show that, but without the graph. I've just shown the astrological factors. It's fun to make the graph and watch it go up and down. It's fun and it's informative and helpful. So my point is, vibrational astrology is intricate and there are many, many facets to it. So let's read this slide. Political activities and global events are important to understand because they affect so many people. However, political activity and global events are not so great for scientific research. I'm making these graphs because we're all concerned about the war in Ukraine. We want to know if we can use astrology to help. So I've made the model, we're applying it, but whether the model works or not, the future of vibrational astrology is not in global events. It's just not as good from a scientific viewpoint. It's important only because we want to understand them and develop good strategies and policies. For developing you might say the scientific part of vibrational astrology, to increase our confidence in the model, research on individuals provides larger databases. We have the ability to gather more data. You cannot gather more historical data except by going back further in time. But if you want data, for example, our research on bipolar disorder is among the most important research projects we've ever done. We can collect more cases of bipolar disorder, potentially tens of thousands. So research on individuals is much better. I'm only making these videos on political events because we want to apply the ideas and see what we can do. Nothing in historical or global studies is likely to give as strong evidence as the analysis of individuals. Okay. Vibrational astrology is a fully developed evidence-based practice and is at the same level of other academic disciplines. I know that's a controversial statement. I will say it again. Vibrational astrology is a fully developed evidence-based practice, and it operates at the same level as other academic disciplines. This is the formula. If you've been wondering what the formula is, there it is. This is in the Series 3.0 software. We go in and we create the Forecast Astro Signature. In the upper left, I called it terrorism from old restrictive groups. This was a revised formula after I improved it a little bit. And it's Sun, Neptune, Mars, Neptune. Let's see, Sun, Neptune, Mars, Neptune, Pluto, Neptune. So it's Sun, Neptune, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, Neptune, and Neptune, Pluto. Sun, Mars, Saturn, or Pluto. Sun, Mars, Saturn, or Pluto connected to Neptune. Neptune is the planet in every vibration. And the vibrations are 7, 14, 21, and 28. When planets come into those vibrations, people become anti-American. Why did they become anti-American? Just because the planets are in those vibrations. Because, as I said before, they get an interest in the ancient ways and the ancient traditions. They want to be quieter. They want to be deeper. They want to be more profound. They don't want to see a lot of glitz and glamour and, advertising. Oh, buy this, buy that. It's cheap. It's like tinsel. It's irritating. The music has no depth, no soul to it. From their point of view, again, I'm not saying that I believe this or I believe that. I'm telling you how people are perceiving things. And if they get any feeling that the West is trying to do a regime change and force their ways on them, it's not going to work. They're going to resist, and 7 vibration is in it for the long term. They're not going to give up. So, and on the lower left is the long-range trend where we remove the faster planets. So this is only Saturn and Pluto. Just Saturn and Pluto. We remove Sun and Mars because they go by so quickly. And for Saturn, Neptune, we do only 7 vibration, 7 and 14. And for Neptune, we use 7, 14, and 21 for all of them. And Neptune, Pluto has the 28. Well, I'm getting mixed up here. It looks like we're doing 7, 14, 21, 28. It's simpler than I thought. We kept it simple. I'm remembering what I was thinking about, but we just did 7, 14, 21, 28 for Saturn, Neptune, and Neptune, Pluto. So we're removing Sun and Mars. Basically, we removed Sun and Mars from the formula. That's all we did. Kept it very, very simple. You'll notice the strengths are all 10 points. Here, on the detailed one, by the way, we gave 10 points for everything that's Saturn, Neptune. Saturn, Neptune in 7, 14, 21, or 28 vibe very strongly inclines to skepticism of the West, and all the rest of 3 points. They are simple and elegant, same pairs of planets, same orbs, same constant, completely consistent with vibrational astrology theory. If you're a vibrational astrologer, this makes 100% chance. And here's the pro-American sentiment. Pro-American sentiment is 13, 26, 39, and 52 vibration. With Jupiter or Neptune. Actually, what I did here, I think I did all outer planet combinations. Jupiter to Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Oh, I did all outer planet combinations starting with Jupiter. So the idea is 13, 26, 39 and 52. That's 13, 13 times 2, 13 times 3, and 13 times 4. All pairs. And I just gave them all the same strength, except I gave twice as many points to Neptune Pluto, because we have known for a long time that Neptune and Pluto set the trends. So it's simple. It's all outer planets in 4 vibrations. What's amazing is that with an extremely simple set of variables, just 13 and 3 overtones of 13, 13 times 2 times 3 and times 4, of all outer planets, boom, we've produced a graph that matches behavior. It's really astounding. All 3 of these formulas, in fact, the long-term trend is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 aspects, and they're all essentially the same. They're all just 7-based aspects of Saturn, Neptune, and Neptune, Pluto. Very, very simple. If we put into this formula additional things, like there's very strong evidence that Mars, Uranus in 7 vibration is what inclines to violence. We see this on 9/11. If we put that in the formula, the graphs will fit even better. My point is, this is a very elegant, simple model, and it works. And we'll see if it predicts the outcome of the war in the Ukraine or not. I think this is my last slide. Yes, it is. If you want to learn more about vibrational astrology, there's the book, The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder, A Scientific Breakthrough. That's the book. That's the book that's changing everything in astrology. That's the book that explains the breakthrough. We are now in a new world, a whole new world for astrology, an evidence-based world that looks much more like an academic discipline than it looks like any kind of astrology you've ever seen before. You can come to the conference, the Vibrational Astrology Conference, in the first week of March every year. This is a live, real, in-person conference, not online, in Gainesville, Florida. There are lots of YouTube videos. There are things available at Astrology DC. There are other books. And there are classes and other resources. You can always go to www.astrovibe.org. I will show you that. Here's the astrovibe.org website. Whoops. Let me drag this over into my captured area. Okay. Shrink this down a little bit. Okay, there it is. And bring this over. This is the one I want to show you. So astrovibe.org. There's information about the book and other books and the conference. And also at astrovibe.org are astrologers who are teaching. So if we go up to the top, learning resources, and it shows what happened. Learning resources. Okay, there's some books and people who are teaching. Starlene Brighter, Clarissa Dolphin, and myself. There's some others that haven't gotten on the website yet. Christopher Pridham is also teaching. Anyway, we're starting this whole vibrational astrology organization, and this website will become a central place to find out about everything that's going on in vibrational astrology. Okay, that's it, my friends. We're at about 19 minutes, and this is the third and last series of videos on predicting what will happen in the Ukraine war using a data-driven model, and a model based on a simple, elegant, what we call Astro Signature formula for making the forecast. And again, I want to repeat, if you're skeptical of vibrational astrology after watching these 3 videos, fine, that's great. I as I've said before, historical research is not the best way to test a model, to build or test a model. We just do it because these events are important. We want to understand them and apply our ideas and see if it can help. The book on bipolar disorder shows a much, tremendously stronger evidence that vibrational astrology actually models real behavior. It provides useful and clear information on the behavior of people. It's exciting. It's a whole new world. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.